All right, so you may have noticed the collage outside the room. It was commissioned around a month ago for Bonn International School students. What happened is that they were given a small wooden block, just 5 by 5 centimeters, and they were asked to express what came to mind when they thought of the golden toad, its extinction, and all the consequences that came with it, and what caused it. So if you look at it really closely, what's really interesting is all the different diverse ways that the students decided to approach this issue and how they portrayed what their interpretation of it is. So, for example, some people approached it artistically. They drew the toad itself. Some people wrote words down. Some people wrote 1989, the date that it became extinct. Some people drew the toad itself with X's on its eyes and its tongue dangling out, signifying its extinction. The point is that despite all these different perspectives and personal backgrounds and interpretations of the issue, they all have this common theme. They all came to this common conclusion that, hey, this is a problem. The golden toad became extinct for a reason, and it's up to us to stop that. Now, this type of project where you have youth by themselves coming to this conclusion through their own personal backgrounds is exactly the kind of model we need to get them involved with the issue of climate change. And I'll tell you why. You see, in recent years, you could say that climate change hasn't garnered the interest it should by youth around the world, considering that it is their problem more than anyone else's. It's the decisions that are made today that will bear the most consequences on them and their future generations. But what's happened is that it's become such a global issue, a global phenomenon, that it's slightly become impersonal. People, youth especially, don't feel in touch with it. They don't see a personal aspect to it, which is a real problem. They see it as, it's not my problem, it's somebody else's problem, which of course couldn't be further from the truth. So you think of this issue and you say, okay, how do we tackle this? How do we reach so many youths? How do we get them interested in this topic in a way that will have them wanting to discover more about it and wanting to take action? And at first, the most easy, the most obvious medium you think about is social media. You know, we've been given this brilliant tool, the internet, that allows us to communicate with millions and millions of young people. And that's fine. It's been used in many social campaigns in the past, and it will be used for them in the future. But here's what you have to remember when engaging in these campaigns, is that people today are bombarded with small bits of information on and offline, more so than they would have been 30 years ago. So when you're sending out these short pieces of information, whether it's a tweet or a Facebook message that you want people to share, any of that, you run the risk of the message getting lost in all the other small pieces of information that people are presented with every day, all hours of the day. And here's the thing, with an issue as big as climate change, you really can't afford to downscale its significance. So what's the deal with social media and getting youth involved in climate change, getting their interest in it in the first place? The thing is, when you put out a campaign like this, you expect people to like and share your message, to retweet. What will happen here is, yes, you will end up reaching more people. One person will share to all their friends, will share to all their friends, but it's a very passive activity to share or to retweet. And as soon as they've clicked the button, their interest is gone again. It's very short-term and it's not sustainable for keeping their interest for the long measure of time that's needed to handle this issue. So what really is needed at this point? What's needed are engaging campaigns, one that allows students and youth in general to approach the topic from all their various backgrounds, incorporating their passions, whether they be scientific or social or artistic or literary, to come to this conclusion that yes, it is our problem. The main point here is that they're not being force-fed the information, they're being allowed to derive it by themselves. So, referring back to the art project, nobody was given that much information about the golden toad. They were all left to their personal backgrounds and their prior knowledge to derive it all. And that really shows when you look at the individual pieces, the individual squares in the collage, which I encourage you to do after the talk. It's actually quite fascinating how many different perspectives you see, but all focusing on this same conclusion that yes, it is an issue. And it's projects like these, ones where the youth discover the issue for themselves, as opposed to having it shoved down their throat, or just simply reading it from a textbook is the equivalent. It's these types of projects that will harness their capabilities as young people to get involved. It will keep their interests for a longer period of time, and ultimately, this is action. You know, it's not a passive movement that will stop as soon as the campaign ends. Another example that jumps to mind of this type of campaign that I'm talking about is the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. Is anyone here familiar with it? Can I have a show of hands? All right, pretty much everyone in the room. For those who are unfamiliar with it, basically it was this viral trend that exploded on the internet over the summer that consisted of people pouring a bucket of ice-cold water over their heads, filming it all, donating a sum of money to fund research for a cure for ALS, which is a form of motor neuron disease, and then nominating 3 friends to do the same. Naturally, this campaign went super viral. It went all butterfly effect. One person nominated 3, nominated 9, then 27, and it grew and grew and grew until prominent celebrities and political figures were doing it, like Bill Gates, John Mayer, Rob Ford, and such people. Now, what was so successful about this campaign, what got it to be so huge, is that it opened the door for creative freedom for all those to take part, to take their own personal twists on it. So you have, I'll go back to Bill Gates again. He created a whole structure around him. He built it so it would drop the water on him by itself. You have John Mayer, who did it by playing guitar at the same time. Such activities that allow it to really, it made ALS personal to everybody. It made it a relatable issue. And this model can be lifted and replicated in the issue of climate change, which is incredibly pressing, again, since it is the youth and today's generations and their descendants that will bear the most consequence to climate change and the decisions that are or aren't made today. Thank you very much.